Hey folks, Jake and I are here to shoot our vinyl tag video. Um, I have really enjoyed the responses I've seen so far. And I got kind of excited today trying to put together my own. So let's jump right into it. First video I ever saw on the VC. That's almost kind of tough for me to remember. I know the first collection I saw wasn't actually in the VC. Um, James over at DVD Collector 1974, his was the first kind of collection video that I ever saw, and kind of interested me in what that would look like. And so from there, I don't know if I intentionally set out to see if people were doing it for music, or if I'm pretty sure the first person I ever saw do a video was Scott Waters. But that could have been because, I was on some Christian metal boards, message boards, and I knew about his site, No Life Till Metal. I'm not exactly sure how I figured it out, but anyways, my best guess would be Scott Waters. Favorite record discovered through the VC. I am going to show two, because there were, almost had to rack my brain about that, but there were two that I distinctly remember being influenced by the VC greatly. And one, I can't remember whose video I was watching, but they showed this record. It's R.L. Burnside, Long Distance Call, and it was one of the Record Store Day releases this year. And somebody showed this and was raving about it, and I happened to go to one of the local shops, and they still had one. And so I thought, you know what? And it was so reasonably priced. I was shocked, but there's the label. It's on this gorgeous vinyl, but it's a really good album. R.L. Burnside, some great blues, and I wish I could remember who to thank for it, but I'm so glad that they raved about this album. The other album wasn't, I don't think it was not the particular title, but Blackmore Rules was playing some Tigers of Pantang, and so I picked this one up. Great album. I really have one of my favorite albums for the past year. This band sounds awesome. Like the booklet where they have band members where I guess they Photoshop cats' heads on them. But this is a great band. And I have Blackmore Rules to thank for that. Okay. Other hobbies. Well, I guess as much as I collect music, I also collect movies. I have quite a large movie collection, and part of that is helped by the fact that Louisville has a ton of pawn shops, and I can go and get DVDs for $1 here, $1 there, all day long. So I have quite a huge movie collection. I also, I'm not really a gamer. I do have a PlayStation 4 over here, and I've got several games, but I probably play Madden 95% of the time because I'm a football nut. Dolph Van Dale. Yeah, and that would be another passion of mine would be watching football, pro football, and the Miami Dolphins. I've been a fan since '75, and pro wrestling. I don't know if you can see right over here that tower that dolphin helmet is sitting on is just full of wrestling DVD collections, and I've been very lucky. I can find those in pawn shops, and they'll be $2-3. Some of them I've paid for some of the wrestlers that I really like. I've paid more for, but a bunch of those I have picked up dirt cheap. So, I guess that's some of my other interests. Let's see here. Why did you start to collect? Well, I've been collecting music as long as I can remember. I've always loved music. If we're talking vinyl in particular, I guess I got back into vinyl because I realized not every title. I did the usual. I collected vinyl I had records up until the point where CDs came out. Then I switched over to CDs like everybody else, and then just started picking vinyl back up because not everything got made the trip from vinyl to CDs. Now, which format do I prefer? That'd be a tough call to make. I like a lot of music, so right now I would say I'm more of a CD guy because I can buy more new CDs cheaper than I can buy vinyl. And that's usually, economics is usually what decides if I'm going after a particular album. Depending on what it is, sometimes the CD's dirt cheap and the vinyl cost a lot. Sometimes the CD's actually a lot more expensive than the vinyl, and depending upon when it came out and what was the prevalent form. So, economics really plays a big role in that for me, to be able to get all of the music that I want. Play an instrument, play in a band. No, I wish I played an instrument. When I was a teenager and in my 20s, I did a lot of singing. Used to sing a lot in church. In fact, I was just talking with, Dude 1973, I can't remember the year. Anyway, he was talking about this Brian Duncan song. The only one he liked was this goofy rap that Brian Duncan did. Well, in there, Brian Duncan talks about performing with the Cassette Family Band, touring the world with the Cassette Family Band, and this is it. This is it. Back in the day, back in when I was singing, back in the 80s and early 90s, I mainly did it with accompaniment tracks. And so I have a bunch of those. Some of the accompaniment tracks were straight taken off of albums, and some of them were songs redone by a house band, I guess, studio musicians. And I would use those at church. Now, the church I go to now doesn't really have special music. And even if they did, I don't know if I would do accompaniment, sing accompaniment tracks, because 80s, early 90s, that was before karaoke came along and made singing with accompaniment tracks a little goofy. I don't play an instrument. I wish I played guitar. I would love to get back out and at least just be able to strum enough to accompany myself, so I could get back to singing a little bit. I miss having that creative outlet. But I don't know. I'm 52 or 51, getting ready to turn 52 this summer. And there's just a lot of, I don't know who would teach me. I don't know. But then I watched Karsten over at My Analog Corner. I was watching his vinyl tag, and he was talking about trying to learn to play guitar, and he can't quite do all of the things he wants because of his fingers, but he's still trying, and maybe I should take a lesson from him and just try. I don't know. We'll see. Ever work in a record store? No. I don't know. There are these ladies. I think their channel's called Spin Me Around. They just show the used records. I don't know why I go over there to watch them, because they don't do mail order. You can't buy any of the records you see in the box, but boy, I guess maybe it's the energy that they have when they do it. I don't know, but it sure makes working at a record store look really awesome. But no, I've never worked on one. Favorite album from when you were born? This was a tough one. I had to actually pull up a list, because that is not a huge era for me, to try to find something that I really did like from that year. And so I looked at these lists. You would have thought, now that I do have some artists that were performing a lot back then, and putting out albums a lot, but we were already at the point in John Coltrane's career, where he was going, to me, just a little off the deep end with the avant-garde stuff. Some of those albums he made are a really tough listen. I kind of prefer the early 60s when it comes to Coltrane. Love Supreme and that era stuff, absolutely. The more avant-garde stuff, I've really got to be in the mood to give that a try. So Coltrane's albums for that year, like Ascension, no, not quite. Johnny Cash put out 2 albums that year, but I don't have either one of them. Though I have seriously tried to acquire a decent copy of Everybody Loves the Nut. But I don't have either one of his. You would think as many Bob Dylan albums as I have Blonde on Blonde. But believe it or not, I don't have a copy of Blonde on Blonde. One of the few albums, I guess, of his that I don't have. And quite a shame. I heard somebody, I've watched so many vinyl community videos in the last couple of days. Somebody was raving about Blonde on Blonde just in the last day or two, and maybe it was even in a vinyl tag video. I can't remember now, but yeah. So what album? I would have to say right now it'd be Dust on Mother's Bible, Buck Owens and the Buckaroos. I actually discovered this album this year. I was going through a bin and saw that cover and was immediately drawn to that cover. I just think that's a classy cover. So I brought this home, cleaned it up. Unfortunately, this copy, I need to get another copy because this copy's got just a few more pops and crackles than I'm comfortable with. But yeah, I like it. I really like this album, and I will get another copy. Let's see here. What classic album have you never heard? Well, as much music as I've listened to in my lifetime, there are still lots of classic albums that I probably haven't heard. The one that comes to my mind the most, though, would probably be Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. I don't have any Pink Floyd, and I know Dark Side of the Moon was one of the big all-time sellers, been on the charts record amount of time, and but for some reason I've just, I've heard the one song I could name of theirs right now would be The Wall, because it was I can remember listening to that on the radio in the 70s. So but that's about all I know of Pink Floyd. Show a guilty pleasure record. Well, I struggled with that because, for the most part, at my age, I own all the goofy stuff that I like. I'm not ashamed. Generally, I'm just not ashamed of any musician I'd listen to. I'll get on here and bang on about Rick Springfield and Bryan Adams and Corey Hart and a bunch of artists that aren't Striper, bands that just aren't necessarily the most popular bands in the VC, or maybe seen as I don't know, but so guilty pleasure. And then it dawned on me that I'd gone through my mom's CDs after she passed back in February, so I had to go through all of her stuff. But one of the things I kept, and I guess maybe this is a guilty pleasure. Now, this is a DVD. It's Rascal Flatts, The Making of Changed and Beyond. I am not a huge Rascal Flatts fan. I couldn't even tell you these guys' names. I know that he's the lead singer. I think he's got a pretty good voice. But they sometimes will fall into the country pop formula that I'm not too crazy about. But I like this song. I like what that song was talking about. And I have to have, when my mom was living, I had to have Rascal Flatts on my radar just so I could, get her stuff. She didn't understand always when music or DVD concerts or any of that stuff came out, so I'd have to try to keep up with that for her, and I didn't mind doing it. Although it was kind of painful when she'd asked me to order some boy band stuff for her. But anyway, so I guess this would be maybe a guilty pleasure. I say I just kept it because it was part of her collection and reminds me so much of her, but honestly, I really do like that song. Alright, so strangest record. Alright, well, it would be this one. The Dynamic Young Dolphins. This is a record that has radio highlights of games from their 1971 season. Yeah. wish with all of my heart that they had waited 1 year, because this was the first year they went to the Super Bowl when they lost to the Cowboys. If they had waited one more year, maybe they did. Maybe they made one. Maybe I just haven't seen it yet. But I would love to have this album with their perfect season in '72, where they ran the table. Only team in modern football history to go undefeated. 17-0. That would be awesome. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Does anybody else have a record of radio calls, radio highlights? All right. So, show a picture disc. I only have two. The one I'm showing, I showed in my debut VC video. I'll show it again. I love this album. Ace Frehley's solo album. The only other picture disc I've got is a Saxon album that I picked up last record store day, but I love this album. And I still think Speeding Back to My Baby is one of the greatest guitar songs, probably is the greatest guitar song ever. I love the riff it's based on. I love the guitar solo. Yeah. Love Ace Frehley's solo album. Alright. Best posthumous release. I thought this one was going to be a booger, but once I realized the album I needed to show, there was hands down, this was the album. This is what I need to show. It's Rich Mullins, the Jesus record. Interestingly enough, I don't believe this has ever been pressed to vinyl. It's a 1998 release. Rich had started to work on this album when he was killed in a car accident. So what happened is they finished the album. His band finished the album. So what you have here is disc one. Disc one is the demos that Rich had recorded in preparation for the album. So you have him sing basically with guitar. Disc two, I'll turn it around there, you can see it's the Ragamuffin Band in the back and then an empty chair up front for Rich. Disc two is the Ragamuffin Band doing with a fleshed out album. And on a lot of them sang lead, and then they brought in some guest artists like Amy Grant and Phil Keaggy, Michael W. Smith, Ashley Cleveland. They brought in some guest artists to come in and do the. I was trying to see if I forgot anybody, but there's the Ragamuffin Band in the church. So they brought them in to do guest vocals, and I love the album. So the demos, I think. I think there was maybe one song missing off of that he didn't cut a demo for, but anyway, it's brilliant. Rich Mullins was such a fantastic artist. So this album, it was just simply going to be his album, just songs about who Christ was, and that was his goal. He didn't get to complete it, but the band did a spectacular job of finishing it up. Best posthumous release. Okay. What artists do you impulsively collect? Holy cow. Uh, come on. This is a rough one probably for most of us because there are a lot of artists that we collect their stuff. I mean, I could give you a whole laundry list of artists that if I see their albums out and if they're priced decently and I've got the money, I'm going to want to pick it up. Russ Taff would probably be at the top of the list, my favorite artist. Johnny Cash, yeah, it's hard for me to pass up Johnny Cash's albums when I see them both in good shape and for a fair price. But there's a ton of people that would fall into that category. Best Blind Buy. Well, this artist happened to come along at a certain time. It was I don't know, 2001, 2002, somewhere in there maybe. This is a 2002 release, so I'm thinking it was about 2001 when my buddy Dave was really pushing jazz toward me, and I listened to Coltrane's Love Supreme and Jimmy Smith, The Sermon, and just became, I became a jazz nut. So I was doing, I was head on into jazz to the point where, I'm even watching jazz on BET to try to learn as much as I can. And I saw this young lady doing a promo spot for a band that she was in. They were just doing it. This is BET on jazz. And wow, she was so cute. And back then, I can't even remember what the list is called now, but there was an album release list that I could go to on the internet and see what was coming up. And yeah, so I saw that she had one. It's Norah Jones, Come Away With Me. Yeah, I bought this basically because she's so pretty. Yeah, I have had a big crush on her. So it was, I think I only paid $8. It was marked down when it first came out, so I grabbed it up, and yeah, this was a pretty successful album too. Norah Jones. We're really getting up there in time. Let me speed this up a little bit. Favorite album cover. I'm a comic book guy, so I don't know if maybe the bright colors played a part in it or the fact that the art is just out there. But my favorite album cover, Kiss, Rock and Roll Over. There's so much there. So much there. Love this album cover. Let's see, a musician you've met. I've met a lot of musicians over the years, mostly Christian musicians, so I don't know how much that mean to anybody. But I guess the one that's meant the most to me was meeting my favorite artist, Russ Taff. He's a gospel singer, and I've met him a couple times, but most recently I was at his special weekend down in Bell Buckle, and so that would be the favorite musician that I've ever met. But anyway, show a record with sentimental value. That'd be this one, Mickey Clark. Winding Highways is the title. This is a sentimental favorite because Mickey used to go into the Rite Aid where my mom worked, and they became friends, and she introduced me to his music. This is a great album. He does a duet with John Prine on this album. He's the real deal, man. I think you can get this on Amazon, and I recommend it. Great country album. Favorite album no one else seems to know about. Well, my favorite album of all time, and I guess people who are regularly on this channel get tired of seeing it, but yeah, Russ Taff, Under Their Influence. It's him doing a bunch of old gospel songs. He and James Holland rocked it up, and great Roots album. Love this. I mean, like I said, my favorite artist, my favorite album by my favorite artist. Doesn't get much better than that. And yeah, I doubt there's very many people that actually know who he is. And that's a shame. I wish everybody knew who Russ was. Let's see here. Favorite album of a genre you don't know well. And alright, so I don't know classical very well. There's one piece I don't know if you call it an album, I don't know what you'd call it. But there's one piece of music that I know and apparently have an affinity for because I picked up more copies than I realized. Holst, The Planets. Two different recordings here. One is St. Louis Symphony Orchestra with Walter Susskind. The other one is Bernard Herrmann with the London Philharmonic Orchestra. Yeah. And then I even have it on CD with the great Andre Previn conducting with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. I guess I like it because it's epic. It's almost like a film score. But yeah, so that would be that. And it seems like I've gotten through all the questions, and we're a half hour in. So I'm going to wrap it up. Jake's already called it a night. And we'll hope you are having a great weekend, and I can't wait to see some more Vinyl Tag. Yeah, have a great weekend, and good night.